Okay. All right. Today's topic. Let me introduce. Right. This is just I had to introduce myself. And my name is Norman Fang. I'm with Norman's Orchid, and I started the nursery about 1986, and here we are today. And today's topic is actually very dear to me because right about I always liked the Pansy Miltonia back in the 80s. Remember there's a nursery called Armacross and Royston at Carpinteria, California, okay, on the way to Santa Barbara. And they were doing lots of Miltoniopsis breeding. And I always fascinated by the Miltoniopsis. And at that time, there's a lot of hybrid. And I always amazed me to me that Miltonia can flower on such a small plant. Look at this. In a small, on a 3.5-inch pot, it had the color that a lot of Phalaenopsis don't have. And the best part that really fascinated me from the Miltonopsis back in the 80s is because the fragrance. Okay, many of you love the Cattleya. You know, there's one thing about Cattleya is the fragrance. But Miltonopsis really captured me because of the exotic fragrance. But in the early 80s, because a lot of the early breeding is all in the West Coast United States. A lot of them in actually Washington and Repotting in Portland, Oregon. They're all from Pacific Northwest, where the weather is really cooler. And then you have the Armacross and Royston and Carpinteria doing some breeding. A little bit warmer, but still on the cool side. So that's why a lot in the early development and early breeding is actually all developed for the cooler climate. And about 15 years ago, I have an opportunity to go to judge the American Orchid Society, and I went to Cali, Colombia. And you know, some of the species where they come from, Miltonia, Phalaenopsis, Vesillaria type, they are actually from the country in Colombia. So it was a fascinating and eye-opening experience for me, because when I was judging, after the judging, and you know, the night before judging, of course we cannot go in there, and so we only go into the following morning, really bright, about 8 o'clock. And the first thing really hit me is a lot of the mass display of Miltonopsis. That was back in March, about springtime. And we never, for me anyway, I never see such a big display, a massive display of Miltonopsis. Almost like when you go to Taiwan and you see a mass display of Phalaenopsis in the landscape. Well, this is what they are in Colombia. They're just massive. The species Vesillaria, either the pink one. So I get to ask the local about the culture, and also go to visit their nursery after the judging. And to my surprise, you know, they actually going pretty warm. Some of them going as much light as their Cattleya. Of course, the early, bright, cool morning sun. And so, they said what I learned from that trip 15 years ago, which I able to come back and bring it back to the United States, is Miltonopsis, when they are at their active growing season. Those of you grow Cenotes type with a new shoot coming up, they love water. That's very similar to Cenotes and Calicidium type. Okay. The only difference is Miltonopsis. Okay, they're from a little bit higher evolution attitude of the Calicidium. In Colombia, they do not like it day temperature. Maximum at day temperature is 85 degrees. So this is actually 85 degrees, not that bad. Those of you have a greenhouse. Jack, Roger, can you put this cooling pad here? Okay, if this is the cooling pack of my greenhouse. Okay, you see here? Okay, this is where they come out, and very moist and cool. And it's actually pretty much a giant swamp cooler. If you have swamp cooler for your greenhouse, same thing. Or some people have this for the house. If you have that kind of device, that is, I would just put it right next to the swamp cooler or the wet pad where they come up. It's perfect for them because that is actually the area is too cold for Phalaenopsis. And from this end to the other end where the fan, it might be have minimum 15-degree difference. So where they come up, this is perfect for Miltonia. So the temperature for Miltonia, I want to make it simplified. Okay, they do not like it. Their temperature about 85 degrees. Okay, then, and they actually the breeding season, because a lot of breeding, they actually the breeding season they can go out as early as February, and February to about May. Right about Mother's Day, there are some later bloomer that actually can go as late as the end of May or so. So they actually are perfect for what we call the spring season of the bloom holiday season. And so I did lots of, and I also throughout the year, I've been trying a lot of different variety. And what I have found right now is, because Mr. Komodo's, there's a gentleman in Maui, Hawaii, and he's retired now. So he actually released a lot of his new varieties, like this tooth variety, for example. We actually tested this because he actually developed this in Maui, Hawaii, where there is more tropic and more humid, and the variety he able to produce and develop, and that's really charming. And what I consider is more heat tolerance. So look for the variety, and all the Miltoniopsis is under the alliances called Oncidium alliances. So if you're looking for this type of orchid, it will be under the Oncidium alliances. So there's a lot of breakthrough in breeding, you know. So this is why when it comes to Miltoniopsis, I went to this gentleman in Maui, Hawaii, and he actually sold the collection to another company in Hawaii, a big island. So we're going to see a lot of his variety, what I call the American breed. Versus the early age, a lot of Miltoniopsis is actually developed in England and in London. So they tend to grow the big size. Eric Young Foundation also develop a lot of them, but they tend to develop for the really big size, which also come with a big plant. But a lot of those older variety is not that heat tolerance, unless you live in Washington State or Seattle. So look for some of the when we started to release some of this new variety from Maui, we will put in our description to let you know that these are developed from Maui, and then maybe have some more selection for more heat tolerance for you. And so we compare it with the temperature. Okay, now what about the light? They like it light. They actually like, they can take full morning sun before 10 o'clock. And in the winter time, sometimes if the range, and how low can they go? They can go down to 45 degrees. So I do know for a lot of, I do have customers who grow this in Florida, and because they have a nice misty area. If you're not from Florida or you're from the South, in Houston, you actually can put this type outdoor in the fall when the weather cool off, and that's the temperature. What they really don't like is hot and humid. So you do not want to put this outside in Los Angeles, and this is where it's really dry and hot. In reverse, you actually put this as a house plant. I can put this as a house plant. And another thing nice about the Miltoniopsis is they're perfect for under light. Now, if you are growing under light, you solve half of the problem already, because growing under light is more environmental control in the house, and because you have air circulation and also the temperature. Most likely, you're not gonna, your household temperature is going to be below 85 anyway. So this is why there's a resurgence of popularity on Miltoniopsis again, especially from the people who grow under light. So if you have under light growth chamber, Jeff, I think this will be the same light requirement as the one if you get a light from Jeff for the Phalaenopsis. They do not need as much light as the one for the Cattleya, the highlight one. And so that's the temperature range. What about media? Okay, here we actually do two type of orchid media here because I constantly changing and try to improve my Miltoniopsis culture. You can grow Miltoniopsis in New Zealand moss or the cherry moss. Okay, another one they're perfectly okay is growing in orchid bark. And I will give you an example. Okay, so let's see. This is Jeff. I'm gonna pull this up. This is from the orchid bark, and this is using what I call the fine mix. Okay. Oh, this is using my Norman's fine mix orchid bark. There's lots of bamboo charcoal perlite. Okay, they are fine in the orchid bark, and I also grown successfully in the moss also. And this one here is in moss. Look at this. So somehow the one in the moss is actually do a lot more massive. And that's because for me, I prefer the moss here, but moss is not for everybody. The reason moss, if you're in the hot area, like in the south, Houston, for example, even in the house, we do have a hot temperature in the summertime. The night temperature may be on the warm side. The nice thing about the moss is it's going to cut down the root temperature about 10 degrees cooler. So the moss is actually make the temperature cooler. So that way it can resist if you have a really hot weather. That last year we have 110 degree for almost 2 weeks, and night temperature is too warm, like 80 degree. Okay, but then the root temperature is actually 10 degree cooler, so they like that. And so whatever the media you're comfortable with, okay, you the only one know what you can handle as far as the moss or the bark. Just remember the one in the bark, okay, you got to remember you're going to water twice as much as with the moss. Okay, and lots of time, especially on the new growth and with new shoot coming up, you might see some people say, oh, there's a wrinkle, okay, on the leaf. And if you had any wrinkle on the leaf, luckily I do not have those problems here. Good thing. If a wrinkle on the leaf, that usually tell me that when the shoot is coming up, that's when they need a lot of water. They will lack of water. That's how they got a wrinkle on the foliage. Okay, so the one in the bark, especially when they have a new growth coming up, and then when they're in flower, make sure you water, keep up with the watering. Okay, and do not, and Miltoniopsis also have a very thin leaf. And this is perfect if you go under the light. Put it where the fan coming through. They really like the gentle air. That is actually going to help the cool off the leaf temperature. Okay, and
fertilizer.
Any question?
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer, almost there, almost there. And before I move on to fertilizer on the watering, when Miltoniopsis, this is why we don't have sprinkler head system in greenhouses. Miltoniopsis, one thing they do not like is when they are in bud like this, they do not like overhead water. They look at this one here. This is the typical. This is what happens when you have, if you do hang water, try not trying to have your water hose not to touch bud. They do, once you have a flower bud, water stay on the bud, and for any reason, the water stay here. There's a sheet here. The water collect on the sheet, and did not got dry out overnight. They're gonna have bud busted. Okay, and then this is what happened. And you want to make sure you remove it. And then I also want to smell this, because if you get a very distinct odor, like this one here, they are actually very sensitive to. I can smell that kind of Pythian drop like this. Also, you do not want to have this to have fermentation and go down to the root and go down to the suitable, and it might cause a lot of problems later on. You see here, this one's actually fall off and drop it on the foliage. If I did not remove this, okay, and this Pythian that actually inside the flower bud is going to have a ooze of stuff that will go down to the shoot, and you're going to have a problem for the entire shoot. And if you didn't catch enough, and then we go down to the shoot and go down to the entire plant, and that was caused what we call the rotting. And this kind of Pythian is in the winter, the weather's warming up, warm day, warm night, it can develop soft rotting rapidly. Okay, so on the fertilizer. Okay, for those of you are catalytic grower, Cymbidium grower, many of you like to heavy. Sometimes there are some people with, especially Cymbidium, they can take a lot of fertilizer. Some people I know, when they go outside, they can actually push and double of the recommended ratio of my fertilizer, for example. Usually it's called for 1 teaspoon per gallon. But for the Cymbidium, outdoor, because there's so many light and the heat, during the growth season, vegetative season, for the experienced grower only, they can push double and they can use it. And so is some other Untitled alliances, but the Miltoniopsis do not like high concentration of fertilizer. So make sure when you feed it, just do not go above what I recommend of my fertilizer, for example, the 1 teaspoon per gallon of water. So no matter what kind of fertilizer you use, as far as the Miltoniopsis is concerned, do not use what they recommended. Otherwise, you're gonna have tip burn. What's tip burn? You're gonna have salt damage. And then, okay, and luckily I do not have any salt burn on this. Okay, so on the watering is light, and then we also spray them mega dry. They love Untitled lines. They love mega dry. They especially for flowering. Okay. And another thing about, if your water quality is not as good as in Los Angeles during the summertime or on your watering, I usually do what I call the double water, because Miltoniopsis, their root, okay, the root is very sensitive to salt deposit or salt burn. So they usually benefit from double water. Double water means I water the first time, the moisture from the water kind of loosen up the media, and then the second water again, you will kind of leach out any salt that did not use the last time. So we covered the light, the temperature, and then some do and don't. Okay. Okay. What's do? You do want to water them when it's hot weather. You do want to water them. If you're not sure, or if you're going to be on for a weekend, if you go in the orchid bar, if you're not sure if you need the water, go ahead and water them anyway. And what's the number one don't do it is do not repot them in the summertime. Most of the time, now this only go to Miltoniopsis. A lot of the time when we say, yeah, you can repot it after the flower finish, for example, Phalaenopsis. But Miltoniopsis, because a lot of the unseeded in the genetic unseeded alliances do not. What happened with them is after the flower finish, when they go into the summer, okay, remember now, these are from Colombia, okay, they like it, the native habitat is cool, okay, so if you're in San Francisco, perfect, you can live this outdoor. In San Francisco, you get far, whatever, but they are not like your novelty Phalaenopsis. The novelty Phalaenopsis, the species is from where? Malaysia, Indonesia. There's a nice and warm. They kind of wake up in the summertime. This type, when the finished flower, we just cut the spike off and then do nothing, because they have their mind of their own. Unless they're gonna have a new shoot coming up, majority of the Miltoniopsis, they're just gonna take a summer break. Yeah, they do this type. Very different than your Phalaenopsis and Cattleya. They are just, okay, I've done my work. They're going to take their summer union break. Okay, so, whew, so fragrant. Then what about repotting? I'm going to show you repotting. What there is a example that I actually have from the early variety from the summer. Okay. Okay. This is one of the early variety that flower as early as Christmas time, and I just divided them. It has three. It was so big, we divided it. So I'm gonna have two division. At least I can use it for one for the bark and one for the moss. Okay. So many of you are new. If you're new, this is a perfect example I'm going to show you. This is a plastic for the regular shoe storage. You can get one of those, the moss, for example. I think they're 150 grand. Take about half of them. I soak this overnight with about maybe for this much water. I use about 10 drops. Because usually about 1 teaspoon per gallon of water. So I let them soak overnight. Okay, you can do this for your coconut chip, cocoa chip, whatever. Sometimes the cocoa chip might say pre-wash. No, you had to wash it yourself. Okay, so this has been pre-soaked overnight, and some of you, this is for the new people. You don't want to use like this because this is very moist. Okay. You do want to squeeze all the water. You never pack it with when they pre-moist. You want to squeeze all the water out. Okay. So there's two ways. I can use 100% moss. Okay. Or I can use the bark a little bit with moss. Now, I tend to develop into more, especially if you go under light, the straight bark mix might be too dry out too fast. So there's a solution. You can actually amend some of the moss in there. Okay, so this I'm going to do 100% moss. Okay. Is clean. So after your moss is compressed, you loosen up. Okay, this is what the perfect stage for repotting. Most of the time after the flower, they can go dormant. But this is the variety that flower back in December, and they have the suitable shoot this stage already. Okay, it have problem with all moss, and I also because I trim off all the dead root, but I also soak it for at least 10 minutes in the diluted mega dry solution. Okay, that will help them to reduce the stress, and make sure you clean up all this old leaf, because if you don't clean this up, the water is going to stay in there. and they're going to hidden. And some of your pesticide or your systemic fungicide, if you don't remove it, they cannot penetrate the dead. Okay, so, and this one, for example, have a lot of, you don't have a lot of root, new root to begin with. So this is why I trim it, all the dead one. And because they did not have a lot of root, okay. We also, this is the cut surface here. Before I pot them in there, remember the 2-in-1? Okay. But the 2-in-1 cloning is because the natural cytokinins from the corn, carnitine and oxygen, okay, they can use all the help they can. So what so this is more than just cloning. I also put some at the base of the new shoot, okay, and that will also, hey, at this point, there's not much root to begin with. It will not hurt. Okay, they can use all the help they can do it, and by putting by the base over here, they can actually produce more shoot, or in this case, more root. Okay, so I'm not gonna pot it onto a big 5-inch pot. You judge by how much space you have. Okay. I'm going to use this as an example for 100% moss. And on this one here, it's kind of fun. You kind of make a ball and just squeeze it in. The back, the front, you do some space for growth, and then just gently push inside. But I also hold the plant on the high, because one thing about Miltoniopsis, they do not like to be popped really deep. What happens, you pop them really deep, the water stay by the leaf, by the crown, and that's how you got rotting. So I actually gonna, you notice that I did not pot this right below here. I put it right above, because that gives, the main thing right now is, since this is the division, and this division did not have a large root, I actually let it expose. If I get it too deep, like here, you're gonna have problem. The water gonna stay here. Okay, so the Miltoniopsis, and remember, always give them 1 inch or 2 inch. So when you water them, you're gonna have water slowly penetrate the root. Okay, so this is for the moss. What about the bark? Okay, this is another division. Okay, so since I pre-soak it in Mega Dry, and they kind of loosen up some of this old sheet here. Okay, and I'm not going to do too much trimming because these are actually good. And then here's the cut surface. I'm going to use, this is nice and handy. I always have this in my tool pack. Okay. Your 2-in-1. Okay. And then put some more in the base over here of the new shoot. This 2 new shoot here. This is the one area going to have a lot of new growth, new root coming out. Okay, so this is the pre-mix of the fine orchid bark mix. Okay, now, lady, I like, if you can use this straight. This has the pre-mix from us. This is the best Douglas fir bark, bamboo charcoal, and also the rock from Turkey. Okay, you can use straight, but if you are under light, and lady, you can actually add some moss to it. And especially if you go under light, okay, because you're gonna have 12 hours to 16 hours a day length, and they're going to grow faster. So you can actually mix, supplement your own mix. Okay, so a little bit. See here? Good. Usually about 20% of the moss. The one we just pre-soak it. Okay. And I want to trim a little bit more. This is the back side. This is the front side. Okay. So yours for the back side to the edge of the pot. That way you have here's this space, at least a 1 or 2 year of growth here. And again, I don't want to put it too whole. That's why I put about 2 inches of the bark down there already. You just shake it. And then I'm going to press down. Not from the center, because if you put the center, you're going to push everything really low. And you do it from the side. Forefinger, put from the side. By pushing maybe 2 or 3, push down, guess what? It creates a 2-inch space here. And at the same time, okay, so you have 2 inches space here. Eventually, when as the plant grow bigger, they're going to raise themselves up. So this way give you, when you water them, the water can retain and drains them. Okay, so this is actually good for under light. Then you only, the reason I can do that right now because I have new growth. So when the Miltoniopsis, you get most of them right now are in their blooming season. So what's happening right here is they're going to go into their growth cycle all summer. Okay. Assuming this is the fall when the new growth come in. When the suitable finish, by the time the suitable finish growth like this, have a nice suitable. All right. This is when you want to make sure you don't overwater them, because if you get in too much water, they kind of let it a little bit dry. Okay, because what happened with the reason you don't want to water them because there's a meristem coming, shoot, you're going to come in from here, and this is when they're going to have a new shoot coming up, and that's when the mega dry will help the plant to say, oh, we need more cytokinin to produce flower spike. Okay. All right. So this is at the end of the growth cycle when the suitable or mature. Okay. Or do hang water. Do not let the water stay on here because this flower sheet here do collect water, and then last time it cause a bud busted. And this is the simple. This is follow this rule, not over 85 degrees, but they can take cool temperature. Okay, so I would grow this. I do have customer after I think at Fort Lauderdale, and I told she loved Miltoniopsis, but by the time I told her raise her as a houseplant, she's a high school teacher, a science teacher, and she always have a rack. This is 20 years ago. She always had a rack for African violet and so on. The minute so she get it, just put it out, put it with African violet. And if your Miltoniopsis is in the moss, you can actually do it as a bottom water. In fact, when I visit Europe, the biggest Miltoniopsis grower, they grow in ebb and flow. They water fill out the water in the whole tray and come down because the leaf always stay dry, and you never have problem or the water stay in the crown. So they can grow as a bottom water also, providing that you always constant the water is clean. You do want to have you do not have a source of water that's been there for 2-3 months and the algae coming up. Okay, always change your water. Okay, any question before I move on? Okay, so do enjoy it. If you do have Miltoniopsis, the worst part you can do to them is hot and dry. Like right now, it's really like 95 degree and 0% humidity. They like humidity almost like Phalaenopsis and Cattleya. But most of the orchid, all right, do not like over 85 degrees. So if you have over 85 degrees, regardless of where you live, put it inside. Let them enjoy the air condition with you. Okay. And if you have any tip burn here, that's okay. Sometimes they do that. In this case, there could be a bacterial because it's not the it's a bacterial spotting, and this you definitely always want to remove and rub as soon as possible, and this at least a couple inches below. Okay. All right. And
Elaine is asking, can you water them like frags?
Yes, yes. I grow them. Yeah. For if you have Fragmentarium, because some of the frag like Bachelii hybrid, same temperature as this. If you can flower Bachelii and frag, you can grow Miltoniopsis. Okay, so Elaine, put this by your cool pad. Okay, and in the summertime in Orlando, for example, when it's hot and humid, even here too, they go dormant. They're on their summer vacation. Just leave it alone. Do not repot them. Do not touch them until the new growth wake up in the fall, and that's so they grow their cycle, vegetative cycle in the fall, winter, spring, and then boom, February to May is their flower season. So if you remember this, you'll be okay with the Miltoniopsis culture. Okay. Alrighty. And are we ready for tip of the week? How many of you grow Lacaste type? Lacaste? Any Lacaste? A good Lacaste is hard to get, especially good Lacaste. And I did some experiment on my 2-in-1. Okay, so for example, Lacaste. Okay, this is the Lacaste type. This is all suitable and new grow like this. And if you see something that all suitable die back like this, turn yellow, don't panic. That's part of the life cycle. They finish their doing, so they send in all this down there. Okay. There's a trick. You can actually this might be the first in the world. Do a keiki on your Lacaste. It might not always work, but hey, it won't hurt to try. So make sure we do this on the YouTube. Okay. Okay. So this is what happened with all leaf. I usually will do. I usually myself. I just let them go naturally and then detach. But if you want to do a keiki, it won't hurt to do a keiki pass on them. Okay. Well, I will cut it off. So once I cut it off, there's a cut surface. And guess what I'm going to do? Only the crazy Norman will do this. I'll put the keiki pass, and this is what I did last summer. Okay, because people always ask me, hey Norman, I don't have that many Phalaenopsis. Is your keiki, is your 2-in-1 only do cloning the Phalaenopsis only? No, because my background is plant tissue culture and plant physiology. This is actually will help enhance. Okay, so what happened? If you have the lecture from last week, we had this natural carnitine, and the carnitine is from the organic corn, the new leaf. That's the most concentrated, very expensive, and that's what they use in the high-end cosmetic. That's why the SK2. The SK2 in the Shincheto is actually carnitine, and carnitine is from corn. And but the best part is the better one. What's the difference between the $200 bottle? The carnitine is from non-GMO corn, because the carnitine is from the new leaf of the corn. But now the next level that we did this year is to get the non-GMO corn. Okay, so this is Why we do that? Because that way we can avoid possible or mutation. Okay, you do not have a monster plant. So once you cut surface like that, no guarantee, 50-50, maybe 60-40. Guess what? Voila. Did you see what happened on the top here? You have a cake. This is the first time you have a cakey on Lacaste type. You see here? You get a cakey, a baby, a crown on top of where we cut them off. Okay, so this is about so that after you done that, okay, now we're really waiting for the shoot. I do not want to detach until I got some root. Okay, so what you can do is, okay, do some more enhancement here. Okay, and put more on the base. Okay, and because right now it's a long day, short night, so the plant is in the stage of vegetative stage. So okay, so that means they're gonna have a new shoot, and this one I will encourage them to have a new root to come up, and at least twice a week, at least once a week, I'm gonna spray them with Mega Dry. Mega Dry, we use it every 2 weeks, every other week. It's for general maintenance purpose. But when you are dividing orchid, repotting, you should have a what we call the nursery area, a recover area, a darker area, and it will not hurt to mix the foliage. We make it dry, but I also dilute it down to about 1 ounce per gallon. Okay, and then just spray this, and make sure I spray this. Okay. So as soon as there's some new shoot come out, the new root come out, you can actually, you don't even have to cut them. You can actually twist it, and then you can start a new plant. So this is the first time, the world premiere of the keiki on Lacaste. All right, thank you so much. And we're going to go to the next phase of show and tell, and this is when Jeff cut off the tape for the YouTube channel. Yes? Yes? Oh, yes. Jeff's wife, Nikki, is at home. She's watching right now. She has some teeth got pulled off, so she's retired, rested at home. Hi, Nikki. Okay, so I will see you next week at the same time. And stay tuned for the show and tell.